Mark Rogers TV back with you, veering off the path of college football exclusively, just ever so slightly, but we do bring in a rabid college football fan in Elizabeth Sturdivant, who has a site and has a show, 3 Yards in the Cloud, and we'll have her explain for you people who aren't in the know on your 1970s college football in just a second. Elizabeth, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So this is really great. So Elizabeth and I kind of connected on LinkedIn, and she is obviously a huge, huge football fan. So I love this. So Elizabeth, you've got this site, 3 Yards in the Cloud. If you can kind of explain to us what we're going to find there and how all this got started.
Well, I created the website to do something different in sports television that other women are not doing, and that is I created a platform for me to actually give my opinion. I didn't want to be just another pretty face on the sidelines reporting about the things happening. I actually wanted to talk about it and discuss it and give my opinion. I am the guy's girl. I'm sort of the guy's girl that 99.9% of girls and wives approve of. You know, I can actually pick games against the spread and tell you who wore it better in Us Weekly magazine. So I've had a lot of fun with the site so far.
So 3 Yards in the Cloud, that might need some explanation for some people. I think it's extremely clever. Maybe not so clever as Mark Rogers TV. Obviously, just kidding there. I went the straight route. This you used a little brain power to come up with this. This is very clever. I love this name, 3 Yards in the Cloud. So if you can explain for us.
Well, I'm a traditionalist. I love old school football. And the legend Woody Hayes from Ohio State had this saying, you know, he felt that he could win any game if you had 3 yards and a cloud of dust, which basically symbolizes a great run game, you know, winning it in the trenches. If you could run 3 yards every play, you're going to win the game. And I love that. I love that kind of football. It excites me. I like it better than throwing the ball every down. And so for me, it was very fitting to have the title of my show have 3 yards in the title. And since it's in the cloud, we're on the internet now and we've all evolved. That's where the title came from.
And I read that, Elizabeth, on your site, and you're right there with me on this one too, because when everybody was running the football, when I first started watching, it was exciting when you would come across a team that was a little bit ahead of the curve and could throw it pro style. But everybody runs the same offense now. I'm tired of watching the zone read and the one running back in the backfield and the read option, and then we throw it constantly and we just hurry up and we throw. That I love the teams like Alabama, LSU, I believe with Michigan and Harbaugh back. I think they're going to go to more pro style where there's actually a fullback. Which most teams don't incorporate anymore, and they run the football. So I love to see that. It's kind of ironic that the passing game to me has become somewhat boring, and I love to see teams that can go old school, be more pro style, and run the football.
And I think that was proven this year, and that old school football still wins out. Ohio State is one of the most physical teams in the game today. And, I love to see the teams line up and let's see who's bigger, faster, and stronger. And they're pretty much going to win the game. And Ohio State proved that with how physical they were against Alabama and ultimately against Oregon to win the national title.
Yeah, I checked out some of your videos. You went out there. You said Ohio State's impressed you. They're very physical, very athletic, and really liked the matchups down the stretch that a lot of people didn't like, i.e. Wisconsin, because, hey, we got this quarterback nobody's ever seen before. Obviously, this is going to be difficult. And then against Alabama and against Oregon. So they, of course, made the historic run, but you called it before it happened. So you make the predictions, which is very cool. So how well have you done with the predictions?
Well, I'm over 500 on their predictions. So I pick my games based on teams who can run the ball versus teams who can't stop the run. And ultimately that gets back to who is the more physical team on the field. And it was pretty easy to see with Ohio State. I picked them to beat Sparty and Michigan State midway through, and then I picked them again to beat Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game when nobody wanted to pick them because of JT Barrett. But if you watched Ohio State, you could clearly see that their offensive line and their running game with Ezekiel Elliott were the true stars on the field, and that proved to be dominant and Ohio State was solid, and it was fun to watch them make it all the way through last year.
So, Elizabeth, unfortunately, college football off season is longer than any other sports off season. We have to wait from early January all the way up until practically September till we see some real football. They're playing spring football, but actually heated actual games that count. So what are you doing with yourself these days, and what can we find on the site?
Well, I decided to tap into the world of fantasy sports because, let's face it, they're not going anywhere. They're only growing exponentially. And I think it's great for sports in general because you get a lot of people who may not necessarily be sports fans, but in the fantasy world, it sort of causes them to take interest in the sports. So I decided to have a little fun and do a March Madness show. And I did my bracket picks and picked the teams who would make it to the Final Four. I did pick Wisconsin to win it all. Ultimately, in the end, I really felt like they were going to be the best team to match up against Kentucky if they got to that point. So I really love making bold calls. That's something that I have a lot of fun with. And I could not pick Kentucky to win it all because the entire country was picking Kentucky. So after doing my research, I wanted to see who could match up best with Kentucky. And Wisconsin had the speed, they had the size, they had the guard play. And I really felt like Frank the Tank could take advantage if Kentucky had an off night, and they did. Ultimately, Kentucky lost to Duke. But let's face it, when you get to the Final Four, anything can happen at that point. It's so much fun to watch. And I think if Duke, Kentucky, and Wisconsin all played again today, the outcome might be a little different. But so I did the March Madness show. I also threw in a Masters show just to get me through until football season started. And congratulations to Jordan Spieth, by the way, who is not even old enough to rent a car, but he just won the Masters. So hats off to him.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy and very impressive by him, matching what Tiger did 18 years ago in winning the Masters as a 21-year-old at that point as well. I was feeling pretty smart with about 5 or 10 minutes left in the national championship game as well, because I picked Wisconsin to win the whole thing as well, beat Kentucky, win the national title, and I had Kentucky and Michigan State in the Final Four as well. I'm not going to mention that I didn't have Duke and I had somebody else that got knocked out like in the first round, but I had 3 of the 4 there and thought Wisconsin. And I was probably, basketball not being my thing, I did a little bit more rooting than I did actually breaking it down, and I was hoping that Wisconsin was going to pull it off, or somebody other than Kentucky, and preferably somebody from the Big Ten. So I rooted in that direction, and it almost worked out for me when they almost pulled it out there against Duke, but kind of wilted down the stretch. So fantasy football coming up. So that's got to take a lot of research as well.
Yes, and that's basically what I'll be doing between now and August, is researching the players that we have coming up for fantasy football. I enjoy the NFL and college football the same, but fantasy football is just something that is so popular that I couldn't ignore it. And, ultimately, fantasy sports are sort of dominated by the stats geeks. They crank out the numbers. And I decided, why can't I also give good statistical data and give good analysis of the players and the games, but deliver it in a fun and entertaining way. And so that's something that my viewers and my fans have had a lot of fun with and watching my show. And I hope to gain a few more followers this fall by tapping into that fantasy football world.
I know everywhere I go, people are playing fantasy football. They're talking fantasy football, and they're talking about it like 4 months ahead of time. And I just think it's crazy. And I love football just like you do. I cannot play fantasy football. I've not brought myself to it. And one of the reasons why is I hate to lose. I'm pretty competitive, and I figure, hey, if I can't devote the time that I need to win these games, to win these matchups week in, week out, I just can't bring myself to do it. Plus, I can't bring myself to root against people or root for people that I don't want to root for. So I'm still holding my ground at this point, but I checked out some of your videos and some of your talk leading up to fantasy football off season here, and I just thought it was really cool and wanted to have you on to talk about it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I have had a lot of fun with the site so far, and I look forward to, doing it again this fall and delivering, better content, delivering it in a fun and entertaining way. I think Katy Perry was one of the best things that happened to football last year. She appeared on College Football Game Day, and their ratings were through the roof because she brought a different viewpoint and aspect to College Football Game Day, and she was really exciting to watch. And I sort of want to tap into that market and just make it more fun, more exciting, and get people excited about fantasy football and college football.
Okay, Elizabeth, you've got a standing invite because we talk college football all the time and we're crazy about it. So I didn't know when I reached out to you to come on and do a segment that you were such a big college football fan. So you have a standing invite. Anytime you want to talk college football, I'm here so we can take off on that.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Very good. So it's Elizabeth Sturdivant, 3 Yards in the Cloud. Check out her site there. Check out predictions, and now it's fantasy football as well. She does the NFL, college football, and fills in with some other things like the Masters and basketball in the offseason. Elizabeth, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mark.